Hey, without apology, it's Hannah Case. First of all, thank you for letting me share my story with you. I would like to talk about the role that trauma plays in following Jesus or considering becoming a follower of Jesus. I'm a survivor of trauma. I have a lot of trauma, and um, I'm going to share with you some things that have happened in my life and how God has brought me out of them. And because I don't think that, you hear these stories of people like Job and and all of these great people who have suffered great things in the Bible, and there are people in real life that have suffered a lot too. And I'm not trying to make this a oh woe is me type thing, but yeah, so here goes. So first things first, I have dealt with mental illness my whole life. It is something I struggle with immensely to this day. It has gotten worse as I've gotten older. I take medication, and I've struggled immensely with it. So I was bullied and everything in middle school and elementary school, so that was traumatic in itself. But the real trauma of my life didn't really start happening until I was in high school. So when I was 15 years old, the small church that I went to experienced a major upheaval. The senior and youth pastor resigned within a week of each other, as well as two elders. And it just was incredibly insane. And so it it really rocked our world, and it was something we could have never anticipated. I was also sexually harassed, and really um, it was really hard because I didn't know what it was at first. I didn't know what type of bullying it was. I knew it was uncomfortable for me, but and then because of that, I started seeking attention from guys in the wrong ways. And so there's a lot of anger there and a lot of hurt. When I was 16, my 26-year-old cousin Gary died, and it was so traumatic for my whole family. And because of that, I really struggled in school after his passing. I got on an IEP, and I finished high school through that. And so I decided after my sophomore year at Revere was over that I would finish high school online through ECOT. So when I was 16 and then going on 17, LOL, I started at ECOT, and when I was 17, I entered Akron Children's Hospital's partial hospitalization program. My mental health was not good, and I needed help. Basically, it was just an all-day type school situation where you were just learning about mental health and learning how to cope, and it was one of the best 7 days of my life. So I will always be thankful to the people that helped me there. When I was 18, after I had done PHP that summer, I did my first musical in a really long time, and I met the director, Kelsey, and Kelsey and I became fast friends, and she became like a best friend, a sister to me. Unfortunately, she was fighting stage 4 ovarian cancer, and that fall, she passed away. And so that was it for my high school trauma. But the big thing was when I was 18, I was raped my second week of college. And then 9 months later, I was sexually assaulted at 19. And yeah. It's really hard to tell someone, like, how do you tell someone who's been through something like that it's going to be okay? Because I didn't think it would be. And you don't really, it's not really your place either. I mean, all you can do is pray for people who've suffered, and all you can do is just love people who suffered. And if they need help, give them that help without judgment, no question asked. And so, because of what happened to me, I spent time in something called IOP, which is an intensive outpatient program with a trauma focus. And after I finished IOP with a trauma focus, I did individual counseling, which went deep into my traumas. And at the time that I was raped and assaulted, I didn't know what consent was. And I realized that I hadn't given consent in either of those situations, which was what made them rape and assault. And so it broke my heart because I was having a hard time in the relationship I was in at the time, being intimate and loving and being, loving and very like comforting with my boyfriend at the time. And so it was a very hard pill to swallow and something that I still have a hard time accepting. A series of really poor relationships, like after I broke up with my then boyfriend, it's just a series of poor relationships after the other. And it wasn't until I was in a relationship this past January to where I felt God pulling at my heart saying, it's time to come back. And so Grace was the first church that was on my head, or on my mind, I mean. And I've since been able to get answers as to why, I spent so much time away from God, because I was so angry at him for letting this happen because, he knows all. And, there's still anger there. There's still frustration. And, and you're allowed to be angry at God. And I think that's super important that we talk about that. But it's also important that when you're angry, you take the space you need, but you don't stay away forever. You have that conversation that you need to have because God's willing to have it with open arms. I have a paper here. That's why I keep looking at it. It isn't so, as much as I want to blame God for everything that has happened to me, it is the fault of it's the sin that is the fault of those that have hurt me.